Now, let's see what David has to features prominently in our portion. The matzah basically heralds more than anything the coming of Pesach. Matzah, when we think about matzah, we think about the coming of Pesach. He writes, soldiers in the army recognize this very well. When he says 2 weeks in the army, he writes 2 weeks before the holiday, the meals include different forms of matzah, and this tells us that the holiday of Pesach is coming. I don't know why I didn't realize they did that in the army, because you're not supposed to eat matzah on the eve of Pesach, and a lot of people have the custom not to even eat it the month before, and also certainly not to eat it once Rosh Chodesh Nisan starts. But this is what he says is the practice of the Chayalim. So this tells us, he says, I want to explain matzah. He says, these words are based upon the teachings of Rabbi Daniel Alter, but I want to add on my own words about the purpose of the matzah. So he says, the young child recognizes the special experience of wrapping up pieces of bread in tinfoil to search for chametz. On the eve of Pesach, he said this is his family's practice, that we hide 10 pieces of bread, and we know exactly where they are, but nevertheless we search for them, and we find them through our search. But the main thing of Pesach is, the main idea of Pesach is it's true that the main idea of Pesach is we do very unusual things so that children can ask questions, but this doesn't explain why we do this very strange practice of searching for chametz. It's a little bit like Easter egg hunt, right? Like we hide something and then we search for it, and people have drawn this connection. Of course, I'm not just making it up. A lot of people have drawn this connection, but so what is going on with this action? So what's the point of finding chametz that we already hid just a few minutes ago? And why is this considered a search for chametz? So he said, let's go into it. The Gemara in Tractate Pesachim explains, Amar Rav Chisda, we learn out the idea of mitzia mi mitzia, from you must find from find, and mitzia mi chupus, finding from searching, and searching from searching, and candles from candles from candles. So Rashi says, what does this mean? This refers to chametz. We learn out the idea of chametz from the fact that of finding chametz from the fact that it was said by the cup of Benjamin, and we learn out mitzia from searching, meaning to say this finding of the cup of Benjamin. We learn out from there, because just like the finding of the cup of Benjamin happened after a search, so too the finding of chametz needs to come after we first search for it. So the Gemara is basically explaining that just like the cup of Benjamin, i.e. when Joseph hid the cup of Benjamin, they found by searching for it, so too we have to find the chametz in our home after we search for it. And just like the cup of Benjamin, they first hid, i.e. Joseph hid it, and then they found it, so too we have to do the same thing for chametz in our house. We first have to hide it and then search for it. He says, well, this is very strange. So he said, that's from the Gemara in Pesachim 7b. But he says this is strange because isn't the whole point of searching for chametz that we don't know about? And now that through our search, we've discovered it. And isn't that the whole essence of the search for chametz? And now he's saying that the whole essence is to first hide it and then find it, like we did with the cup of Benjamin. So how do we explain this combination? So Pnei Menachem explains that there's a powerful idea here. The Talmud teaches us that Rabbi Alexander after he would pray, would say the following words: Master of the universe, it is known before you that, I'll read this in Hebrew for you. It's such a beautiful phrase. I'll read it first in Hebrew, and then I'll translate it. I don't usually read with David's the Hebrew, but in this case, I'll do it. It says, Rabbi Alexandri, Basar de Matzli Amarachi, Riboina Elamim, Goad Viadula Fanecha, Sheratonena Laso Ritzoncha, Mima Akev, Saor Sheba Isa, Vishibun Malchios. Yiratom Fanecha, Shetatzilena Miyadam, Vinashuv Lasot Chuke Ritzon, Chabalev of Shalom. He said, Rabbi Alexander, after he prayed, would say, Master of the universe, you know very well before you that we want to do your will. And what is preventing us from doing it? The yeast in the dough, and also our servitude to the kings around us. May it be your will, our God, that you should save us from their hands, and that we should return to do your laws with a complete heart. That's the phrase. We want to do your will, but what prevents us? The yeast of the dough and the service of the kings around us. So Rashi says, what does the yeast of the dough mean? This refers to the evil inclination, the Yetzer Hara, that is in our hearts, and that causes us to sin. The yeast in the dough prevents us from doing the will of God. This is the evil inclination in our hearts. This evil inclination comes to be a physical expression. It's symbolized by chametz. And so he says, this is the idea. This is the idea by the search for chametz. We're symbolically searching for the evil inclination inside ourselves. The search really can't, when we search for chametz, we're not really able to completely cleanse our house in this manner. You know, you need a cleaning crew. And so therefore, the chametz is expressing something much more fundamental, which is the chametz is expressing the evil inclination that is found inside us and is burning inside us, and that we're trying to get rid of. So the Pnei Menachem explains that is the idea of the search for chametz. And so therefore, this is the reason why we hide it before we search it. It's not to identify the chametz that we don't know. That's not the point of the search for chametz, to find the chametz we don't know. No, it's not going to be, suddenly I discovered I have this evil inclination in me. No, it's just the opposite. That the idea is that there is this yeast inside me, and I need to find it to the best of my abilities. So just like we know very well that we always have this Yetzer Hara inside of us, this evil inclination, but we ignore it, so too we need to hide the chametz and to basically do everything in our power to identify those qualities that we already have, that we know about them. We know it's not a secret what our weaknesses are. Usually we already know what they are. It's not a secret. We have to put them out and look and find them. That's basically what he's saying. And this explains what we're doing. This is the main idea, that we hide the chametz and we find it. We take our qualities, and maybe you could do this to ourselves. I wouldn't do this in public, but we could write down some qualities that we want to eradicate, some spiritual qualities, and we hide that around our house with the chametz as well. And when we look for it, wow, then we'll know this is something I'm going to eradicate. He quotes the Tzvas Emes, the Ger Rebbe writes in Parshas Va'era, "V'yadatem ki ani Hashem Elokechem hamotzi." You shall know that I am Hashem your God who took you out. This is the promise that Hashem Yisbarach took us out from the land of Egypt. This is the reason for all of the exile, so that a person should know that he's prepared to be in exile. And this is the practice of all of Israel. That if a man would know that everything comes from God, a person needs to know that even that nevertheless, a person needs to never forget that person is always capable of sinning. And it's only through Hashem's help that we're able to overcome this sin. Meaning to say that even when a person feels especially close to God, we're always just like hanging on a thread and able to sin. And meaning to say that even in the greatest moments of our life, we're so close to the edge, so close to falling into sin. And so therefore, therefore, it seems natural that we are called B'nai Chorin, meaning to say that every day we're supposed to remember our responsibility, that we are free people, not from ourselves, but that Hashem is sending us for a purpose and see what we're prepared to do. And so that is the basic idea here. And so then Chazal said, I see that there's a question. Let me just finish this paragraph. The one who is arrogant, it's like they're worshiping up idolatry. So what is the purpose of the matzah? The purpose of the matzah, this is in one sentence, is to nullify and cancel out arrogance. It says, Elohei ma'asecha lo ta'aseh lach. You shall not make false gods. As chag ha'matzos tishmor. You shall not make false gods. Guard the holiday of the matzos. Now, matzah cancels out idolatry through the holiday of the matzos. Tishmor means to say you have to remember that you could always become chametz. That something you think you're strong, any second it could become chametz. The matzah is something we have to watch at all times. At all times to be careful that at any second, so it could turn into chametz. And everything that we do is not from our own strength; it's from heaven. And so, therefore, this is the idea specifically. This is the idea specifically about matzah, i.e., the idea that we have to identify those chametz, those qualities within ourselves, try to identify them and uproot them and search for them, and also to recognize at all times that the matzah recognizes the canceling out of arrogance, and the best way to defeat that is to always recognize that we're 1 second away from sin. We're not far away from sin. Even the strongest people spiritually are so close to falling at all times. We've seen many times, and the Talmud talks about this, people who are righteous their whole life, and then they mess up, and they can't, they came so close. We also come so close, but even if we fall, we have a path back. That's the idea. Okay, so I see that there are questions. Let me try to address it.